Hello and welcome to this episode of Shifting the Paradigm. With me today is MUFON Director of International Investigations, Bob Spearing. I'm very excited to have him on because he's done significant investigations on the jellyfish UFO phenomenon, and this has really gained traction in the public eye when Jeremy Corbell released his jellyfish video in January of 2024. And ever since then, there's been all this hubbub on the topic. So I'm looking forward to speaking with a jellyfish UFO expert. Bob, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into your analysis on these UFO jellyfish, I'd first like to get a little bit of a background of who you are and your UFO research as well.
It began a long time ago. Back in November of 1965, we had the Great Northeastern Blackout. I was a little kid. Uh, Everything from Quebec down to Virginia went dark. And the next day, there were all these reports that UFOs over the Clay Power Station at Niagara Falls took out all of the power on the East Coast. I was hooked. My uncle at the time used to bring me Gold Key UFO comic books. In the 70s, I used to get the Saga magazines, Saga UFO magazines. In 85, I had a sighting of an orb over a lake doing bizarre maneuvers. I also saw a silver sphere once while I was on a train, pacing the train at about 1,000 feet out. The strangest thing that ever happened to me was up in coming back from Quebec near Lake Placid about 2010. I came to this clearing on this empty highway in the middle of nowhere, and I saw this massive object with triangular wheels climbing up a cliff. And I did a U-turn to go back to see what it was, and it was gone by the time I get back. So technically it wasn't an unidentified flying object, but it was certainly some sort of technological object in the middle of nowhere that shouldn't have been there. So I joined MUFON. I was a field investigator for several years and worked my way up to Director of International Investigations. I have a forensic background, a journalistic background, uh, film production background, so I had a lot of the attributes that were required to be a field investigator, and I also had a lot of managerial experience, so that's how I got where I am.
That's pretty remarkable. And just the amount of strange encounters that you've had, it leads me to the question, do you think that you were at the right place at the right time? Or maybe did you feel pre selected to have these kinds of sightings and encounters?
When I was a kid, I had some very odd dreams that I thought I may have been pre-selected, that would have bordered on abduction. I don't believe, though, that I was ever abducted. If anything, I believe I was rejected as a child for abduction. Later on in life, I just think I just happened to be at the right place at the right time when I saw these. I considered the last one odd. The other two were pretty mundane. So when I was a child, maybe. As an adult, no.
What led you to the conclusion that you believe that you might have been rejected?
I was invited by what I think were three little grays, but they looked like Peter Lorre, the old 1930s actor to me. They had sort of scrunchy faces, and they were outside my window, and they were calling me to come with them. And I could see the stars and Jupiter and Saturn behind them, and I was afraid I would never see my parents again, so I told them no. And that pretty much ended my odd dreamlike experiences.
How old were you?
7, 6, 7. So, I mean, and if you saw the MUFON database, like I do, there's 140,000 cases, and you read the narratives, you'd be amazed at how many narratives start off with, "I was about 7 or 8 years old at the time." It's they UFOs and children are definitely a pattern. It's scary.
It is, and there's a lot of ideas on why that might be, but for someone such as yourself that's kind of experienced that, that has researched that, what's your answer on why you think children and these extraterrestrials have this connection?
I think that there could be several possibilities. On the demonic side, I think there may be something to do with some soul stealing. On the alien side, there may be something to do with that hybrid program. I was just looking at a case last night where a woman had a bedroom encounter where Greys actually stole the baby out of her body while she was screaming, and she suffered from postpartum depression. Whatever it is, I do believe it's sinister. I'm not one of those people who think that the aliens are good guys.
I'm a little surprised to hear the demonic explanation to come out first from a MUFON investigator. Through your years of research, do you feel like there are these two different camps between ET and demons, or something else?
I think that the UFO phenomenon is actually an umbrella term for many phenomena. I definitely think there's a demonic side. MUFON would not agree with me. That's just my personal opinion. There's also the nuts and bolts alien craft theory that they're coming from somewhere else. I am particularly fond of the time traveler theory. Over the years, a lot of my research has shown me that our timeline, I truly believe, is being manipulated. And if you go throughout history, there were interference in battles with Rome and with the Parthian Empire and other cultures. And I do think that religion plays a part in it too, that there may be a religious component to whatever the time manipulators are trying to do, prevent something from happening in the future or trying to cause something to happen in the future. And then there's also, the more mundane aspects of ufology, that there may be, secret aircraft of the United States or China or Russia that people mistake for UFOs. There's the Silurian theory that there may be an ancient civilization at the bottom of the oceans. I don't discount any of it.
The time traveler theory, I think, has become more mundane over the last few years. Before, people were like, "You're out of your mind to have that as a conclusion." But now we're hearing more and more people think about that as a possibility, and just musing about it. It is pretty fascinating just to think why. You're like, why are they doing that if true, right? But you've also investigated and looked at and researched thousands of cases. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as the director of international investigations?
Well, what I do specifically is I handle all of the field investigators and all of the investigations outside the United States of America. The United States of America clearly has the most cases. That would be followed second by Canada, France, the United Kingdom, and then Australia are probably the five biggest countries. We get cases from other parts of the world too, like Singapore or Morocco, and we really don't have people in those countries because it's rare that you get a lot of reports from there unless it's like a flap of some sort. So we have a special team that reaches out to people in remote parts of the world to try to get their story. But for the most part, the major European and North American countries, and I'll add Brazil to that, are where we get the majority of our reports from. So I oversee about 100 field investigators and probably about 200 to 300 cases a year outside the United States.
That's pretty impressive, actually. I think MUFON's doing a really fantastic job on that, just being an amazing database to allow people to understand what is going on around the world. And then what's amazing is that you're able to read other people's accounts and you say, oh my gosh, that sounds like mine. And so I think it gives people a level of confidence to share their stories or to even reassure them that what happened to them really did happen and it wasn't just some hallucination or just some crazy dream.
Well, I'm a patterns guy, all right? And when you see the same craft over and over again, when you hear people telling the same story over and over again, when the abduction scenario is the same over and over again, you have to say that these people aren't hallucinating. They're actually experiencing something real, and it's been going on for a very, very, very long time.
And you've also done some serious digging when it comes to seeing these jellyfish UFOs around the world. And what I love about today and having you as a guest is that you actually came prepared with a presentation on the topic. So I'm actually going to hand this off to you, asking you a few questions here and there, but please take the lead.
If you could put up slide one, I want to show people what a jellyfish is not. Okay, so we got this great video a couple of years ago of this red object with streamers flying like east to west, and we really weren't sure what it was, and we presented it as a case of interest at our symposium, and we asked the audience to determine what it might be, and someone showed us a picture of exactly what it was, and it was a kite. It was a squid-shaped kite. So this wasn't a UFO at all, but to the untrained eye, it looked like a giant squid in the sky. So I present this one to show you that a jellyfish might not be a UFO at all. It might be a kite. The next one I'm going to show you, number 2, is the same thing. These are squid balloons. Okay, you fill them up with helium, and when people see these from far away, they may think that this is an extraterrestrial object, when in reality it's just a mylar balloon shaped like a squid. So what MUFON tries to do is determine what is mundane and what is anomalous. And in probably 90% of all of the cases that we get, not only with jellyfish or squid-shaped objects, we can solve most of what we get. Let's go to number 3. It's just another octopus-shaped balloon. I just want to show again what jellyfish UFOs are not. And now I'd like to get into the Corbell video. All right, so Jeremy Corbell, the filmmaker, presented to the world about 2 years ago this short video of what looks like a octopus-shaped object flying over a military base in Iraq, approximately 2018 or 2019. They're not sure of the date. And it caught the world by storm, and eventually Corbell's going to come out with the entire video, but he just gave snippets of it, and he claimed that this was raw footage smuggled out of the military base. The first thing that you have to know is that that's not true, okay? The video that he presented to the world is not raw images. It was screenshots from another television screen. So if you call something raw data, that means that the digital signature behind what you're looking at would be there, giving you the date, the time, the longitude and latitude, especially with an iPhone or with a complex military camera, and this does not. So he's mistaken when he says this is raw material. The second thing is he said it was top secret. Well, the Department of Defense came back and said, we don't tell anybody what's top secret or not. So he's inaccurate about it being top secret. Okay, so they pretty much debunked his claim that it was top secret. We debunked his claim that it was raw footage. All right, it gets worse because he claimed that it went for 17 minutes and then down into the water in the Persian Gulf. There was a intelligence sergeant who saw this video at the base where this apparently took place, and he said that it was at a location called Lake Hiawatha. There is no Lake Hiawatha in Iraq, but there is a Lake Hababaka, which I believe is where an English military bases, airfield, and that is 500 miles away from the Persian Gulf. So pretty much Jeremy Corbell strikes out 3 times on location, that it was top secret, and that it was raw data. So that begs the question, what is it? It looks like it's got 2 legs at the bottom. It looks like it's got horns. We thought that initially it might be some sort of conglomeration of festival balloons, but there were no Muslim festivals going on at that time of the year. I believe it was October. So it could have been a clump of balloons. But the interesting thing is, how is it being filmed? It was allegedly being filmed from a security camera on an aerostat, a blimp, doing surveillance at the military base. And it followed this object for 17 minutes. The problem is, if it was a tethered balloon, if it was a tethered aerostat with a camera, it wouldn't have been ahead of this object for so long. It would have actually been panning following it. Okay, so we're not sure if it was really a camera on an aerostat or not, or if maybe there was a drone following it, filming it as it went along. The ultimate question, though, is what is it that was over the base? And one conclusion is that it was balloons. A second conclusion is that it was the residue of bugs on the screen, and that it was not an actual object, but it was something smeared on the camera lens. The third possibility is that it was a human-shaped drone, and if we could go to the next picture. This is what a soldier looks like if he's wearing what's called a ghillie suit. A ghillie suit is a type of camouflage that could explain the spaghetti-type outline of the object in the Corbell video. And if you go to the next video forward, you'll see that there are actual production models of human-shaped drones. So the closest thing that we could come to a conclusion about was that it was possibly a surveillance drone, human-shaped, covered in camouflage like a ghillie suit. So MUFON's feeling about the Corbell video is that it's not something anomalous, that it's probably some sort of military-oriented surveillance device that was captured on film. And so we consider it an IFO, Identified Flying Object.
And the explanation that it was recorded using, it was infrared, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, in this case, how would you describe the temperature here?
Okay, that's another interesting one. I have another video I'm going to show you later that will show the same exact effect. It could be for different reasons, all right? It not necessarily the object changing color. It is the temperature of the surrounding area changing, or what is not seen is whether it went from sunny to cloudy during the filming, which would have changed the complexion of the object. And we have a video I'll show later, hopefully it's in the mix, that will show the exact same thing happening. Okay, with that, let's do some real jellyfish. When Corbell's video came out, we obviously took a big interest in seeing whether or not it could be an actual phenomenon. And we were very surprised by what we found out, not only in the MUFON CMS, but also in some historical files that we have. MUFON has all of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, APRO's old files and newspaper clippings and newsletters. And we were startled to discover that the earliest recorded jellyfish that somebody reported and drew was back in Peru in either 1947 or 1948. And what's very, very interesting about this drawing are what look like the corpuscles in the top of the head, which sort of glowed red. And the closest thing I could compare it to is if you crack open a pomegranate. Okay, same color, same thing, and this thing was huge, and it had a very, very large tail. And we're going to see this almost exact type of jellyfish again later on from the MUFON case management system. So this is the earliest one we have, Peru, 1947, 1948. If we could check out the next one, we'll move forward. This was from Weehawken, New Jersey in 2019. And basically, guy's looking out the window towards the New York City skyline, and he sees this amorphous, glowing, yellowish, tentacled object flying over the Hudson River. And again, we have the same phenomenon decades later, where it appears that there are corpuscles in the head of the object, just like what was seen in Peru years later. What the purpose of the corpuscles are, I couldn't tell you. The thing that I'm trying to establish here is that there's a pattern in these creatures, apparently, that are very large and have these corpuscle type things inside their heads. The other thing is the tentacles, you will see as we go along, seem to glow. Think of like a string of Christmas lights, rotating patterns. People describe this over and over when they see jellyfish. Sometimes it's green fluorescence, in the sparkling lights. Sometimes it's pale blue fluorescence in the sparkling lights. In this case, it was yellow fluorescence sparkling. Okay, next one. Now look at how similar this is to the last two, especially the one from Peru. This happened in, I'll tell you in a second. It was in Europe. Oh yes, it was Croatia. And essentially these four children, three of them drew pictures of it. And again, this one was phosphorescent green. It was Croatia 2006, I believe. And the four children drew different things, but this one is very similar to the Peruvian case in 1948. The head of this object glowed a green fluorescent color, and the tentacles sparkled, sort of like shimmering coming down. The children described this as about 5 feet in length, hovering over a tree. So this is child number one. We have 3 drawings from this. If we could look at the next one. This child thought that the object had windows in it and thought that there were 2 windows. But essentially they're drawing the same thing. And the third child drew this. So the question becomes, are these organic or are these machines? Or are they both organic and machine, sort of like the Borg, if you will? So this was from Croatia. Next case, we started to get videos and still photographs. This one was from Mahopac, New York, where there's these blobs in the sky. They're black like tar, and they're not true jellyfish because they seem to break apart into almost like droplets falling from the sky, only they're hovering and separating into 2 objects. We have absolutely no idea what these things are, and you'll see that this one's from New York, and the next one is going to be from, where'd it go? Sacramento, California. So we're getting more and more reports of these globs in the sky, and we're not really sure what's going on. I'll show you the next one too.
I have a
Next one's
question,
from,
actually.
sure.
I don't mean to take you off your groove, but this one caught my attention because you had stated that you've gotten a few cases where you have these things in the sky that are as black as tar. Are there any conventional explanations for why something would be so dark while in the sky?
No, I don't know. And the thing is that these photos and videos are taken during the day, so they seem to actually not be black because of shadows or clouds or whatever, but that's the actual color of them, and they're jet black, absolutely jet black.
And in these MUFON cases, were there any descriptions on how they moved at all or how they interacted with their environment by chance?
Well, yeah, the one person who took a video of the next case, he actually watched it for a while, and like in this case, the witnesses describe it as separating into separate objects. So are we dealing with something organic, or are we dealing with something that's a machine? It seems very unlikely, looking at this picture, that this would be a machine. This looks like it's something organic in the sky. Back in the 1950s, there was a fellow by the name of James Trevor Constable who wrote a book called They Live in the Sky. And at the time, he was taking infrared and ultraviolet shots of the sky, claiming that there are actual creatures living in our atmosphere. And this would be a good example of what James Trevor Constable was photographing back in the 1950s. Okay, this is the third thing. This is from Rhode Island. This is an actual photograph. It's pixelated because we had to blow it up. But basically, the object was he said it was squid shaped and that it had tentacles coming down off the bottom of it. He thought that this was about 20 to 25 feet in length. So again, this is another big one, but this is the clearest picture we had. He watched this object for 20 minutes. So if you would say, oh, maybe it was just, a puff of smoke from, a tractor trailer. It would not last in the sky for 20 minutes. So that is the third in that set of black globular objects. The next one is very, very unusual. A man was flying out of Prague, Czechoslovakia, and this was back in 2021. And he's looking out the window. There are about 3,000 feet in altitude, and he sees what looks like a black rectangle out in the distance. And as he focused in on it, he didn't have a camera, he had a pair of binoculars. So he's looking out the plane window, and he starts to see tentacles come out of the bottom of this black rectangular object and then quickly go back in. So this again begs the question, what are we looking at? Are we looking at a machine, or are we looking at something organic, or are we looking at something that's both, or is it a machine that's containing something organic inside of it? And he said eventually it just got further and further away and he couldn't see it anymore. I have no explanation for what this is. MUFON doesn't. I don't think anybody does. How often do you see black rectangles in the sky with tentacles coming in and out of them?
Almost never. Probably never.
Okay, another similar one. This is from Marysville, California, and this is very similar to what the children in Croatia saw. This one was drawn by several children, but this is the only photograph I was able to get. This one reminds me of the four children. This one was also glowing with a pale blue color. Okay, and from what the child drew, it almost looks like it could be a machine. It also looks like, if you look at the bottom of the picture, like the globs we were talking about before, that something separated from it, that the child saw fall from it. So again, what are we looking at? I don't know, but more and more we're seeing jellyfish. And what's great about the MUFON database for not only members but field investigators is you can do a keyword search. So it's very easy to type in jellyfish or squid, and it's amazing some of the types of hits that you'll get out of the 140,000 cases. All right, where are we? What are we up to? What's next? This is where we're starting to get close to the indoor jellyfish. This guy was in Texas. This case was investigated by John Egge, the state director of Texas. The guy's driving down this lonely highway in the middle of the day, no cars behind him, and he sees what he thinks is sort of a squid-like object with lights or tentacles coming out the bottom of it. He stops the car because he's amazed at what he's looking at. And the object is getting closer and closer and closer to him, and he sees mist coming out of it. And all of a sudden, he says that through the windshield, the mist starts to cover his entire field of vision, almost like it's enveloping him. And then he felt a pain in his back, a very bad pain. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit with you shortly. All of a sudden, he comes out of the stupor, worried that somebody's going to slam into the car behind him. Field of vision becomes clear again. Object moves away off into the distance. He wasn't sure whether it was a machine or whether it was alive. And what's important is that it seemed to be trying to take him over. All right. What do we have next in the slideshow? This was from 1977, Russia, the Petrovov, I can't even pronounce it, the Petrozadvask phenomenon. And this may have been an electrical phenomenon and not a real object. I just wanted to throw it in here, just so that we can keep the theme going. This was seen by thousands and thousands of people in the sky over Russia back in 1977.
Let me give you a little bit of context on the Russian jellyfish UFO that was spotted September 20th, 1977. The incident began when a bright object in the sky that transformed into what witnesses described as a massive jellyfish jellyfish-shaped craft, approximately 300 feet across, with golden tentacles displaying these beautiful colors. And witnesses reported seeing electric currents through their bodies during the encounter, and many appeared ill afterwards. The object reportedly released a smaller bulb shaped craft that performed reconnaissance over local buildings before returning to the main object, and this was reported by TASS. And what makes this case particularly intriguing was the physical evidence left behind. The phenomenon's light beams created coin sized holes in the ground and windowsills, and notably melted and distorted glass windows. Scientific analysis revealed an unexplained crystalline structure on the non crystalline glass, confirmed by both Soviet and Western scientists. While Soviet officials conducted extensive investigations and even established a research program to study abnormal atmospheric phenomena, no definitive explanation was ever reached, though some attributed the event to the launch of a Soviet satellite, the Cosmos 955, but this theory was contested due to the object's unusual movements and characteristics as well.
Okay, Denmark, 1975. There's a lot of debate about this one, whether or not it was an odd-shaped cloud or whether it was one of the jellyfish that we've been discussing here. It's a very, very unique picture. Thousands of people saw it, and I'll leave it up to you. What do you think that one is? You think it's cloud, or you think it's something else?
It's a very strange looking cloud for sure. It's perfectly round on top, and then you have these appendages coming near the bottom. I've I love cloud watching, but I haven't seen a shape like this one before.
Yeah, it sort of looks like a lenticular cloud, but the tentacles coming off the bottom of it would not be standard issue for a lenticular cloud. So I'm sort of on the fence about this one also. Okay, let's go to the next one. Uh, this is where we get into the indoor jellyfish, and this is pretty creepy. October 24th, 2016, Vancouver, Canada. Woman woke up in the middle of the night and she had a very high vaulted ceiling, and she drew this as what was up in the corner of her ceiling coming down slowly towards her. It attached itself to her back, like the gentleman in the car in Texas, okay? And she claimed that it was glowing again, phosphorescent blue, and the tentacles were sort of sparkling. But at the end of the tentacles were metallic claws. So again, are we dealing with something organic, or are we dealing with something that's a machine, or are we dealing with something that's both? This is what happened. When it attached to her back, she woke up and saw it, and it got scared and detached itself from her as if it knew that she was now awake. She felt that it was draining her life force out of her. And for the next several months, she had very, very, very severe periods where it had attached itself to her back, and it simply disappeared. And the question is, how are they getting in the bedroom? Where are they materializing from? Are they coming from another space and time? Are they coming from another dimension? Because interdimensional is also a hot topic right now. Was it trying to steal her soul? And that's why sometimes I wonder if some of what's going on now is demonic. Lou Elizondo recently came out and said, when we find out what it really is, it's going to be very sobering, and there's pretty much not much we're going to be able to do about it. And I was like, whoa, that's a dark comment from Lou.
Well, this case is dark. It's definitely giving Matrix vibes. So I'm looking at not the first movie, but looking at the other ones. Uh, it it's almost a carbon copy of that.
hmm hmm Remember the date, October 24th, 2016.
Quick announcement, I will be having a live get together where you can share your experiences, play trivia games, and win free merch for all of my Patreon members. That will be on November 9th. That link is in the description box below. And when you become a Patreon member, you get access to extra content. You also get exclusive merch that I am not selling but giving out to my members, and so much more. You really don't want to miss it.
The next one, Vancouver, was October 24th, 2016. The next case comes from Iran. It was a middle-aged woman who woke up in the middle of the night in her bed, and there was a luminescent jellyfish attached to her head and then attached to her abdomen area in the front. And she actually sent a photograph of the scar that it left. It looked like it had performed surgery on her. She felt it was trying to take her soul. The oddest thing about it is that it occurred on October 24th, 2016, the exact same day as the Vancouver jellyfish that attached itself to the back of the woman who felt her soul was being sucked out. So we have two cases on opposite sides of the globe on the same day doing the same thing to women. Where are they coming from? What do they want? How did they get into people's bedrooms? Now, here's the scariest part of it. These were from 2016. The next one, the last one that you have in your series here that you're going to show, and we can blow it up, 1937 in Singapore, 80 years earlier. For those who don't know, Zelma Bramley Moore was a very famous psychic in the 1930s. Well, we don't know these people today because, fame is fleeting, but she was a very famous psychic author at the time. She was a medium, and she was traveling, and she was in Singapore. And Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia, we get a lot of really odd historical cases over the years, especially about orbs, that the natives at the time in the 1930s and in the 1800s revered as spirit gods. Okay, so anyway, Zelma wakes up in the middle of the night in Singapore and says 2 or 3 feet from my face was floating a thing. It was about the size and shape of a rugby football, standing up on end, and it appeared to be made out of some luminous gassy substance, again radiating a pale blue light. So over an 80-year period, all of these jellyfish, both indoor and outdoor, have a greenish or a bluish or a yellow luminescence and sparkle. All right? And she says from its lower end, she made out a substance. It projected a tail, which we would consider a tentacle. This was about as thick as one's thumb and about several feet long. And if we continue, the tail from the thing ran to the tip of it and seemed to be attached in some way to my forehead. It was down this tail that my vitality seemed to be flowing and into the football-shaped visitor. Okay? It realizes she's awake, and it gets shocked by the surprise, and it jerks away from her bed, all right? Detaches from her forehead, all right? And then it simply disappears. So what is this phenomenon we're looking at? Is it one phenomenon, outdoor jellyfish? Is it two phenomena, indoor jellyfish? Or are they interrelated? Do little indoor jellyfish grow up and turn into big outdoor jellyfish? All right. So I think it's a fascinating phenomenon that we've been witnessing, and it's apparently been going on for a very, very long time.
I have never, Bob, I have never heard of any cases like this before when researching UFOs. Even the paranormal, like these jellyfish-shaped entities sucking out people's vitality, maybe even their soul, according to witnesses. It's dark. It's scary, and a lot of people just don't want to talk about it. They want to see ET and UFOs as our space brothers here to protect the Earth and you know cure cancer, but I feel like there's just so many facets to it, and we just simply can't place all of our eggs in one basket of, oh, everything is great or everything is terrible. We're dealing with so many different things here, and these jellyfish stories just add another layer to the interest, really the interest in this topic.
So yeah, UFOs are not one phenomenon. All right, like I said earlier, and the more you see the different patterns, the more you realize that there are a lot of actors. For example, when I do the research on time travel, I do believe people are trying to manipulate the timeline in a bad way, and I also think there's sort of like time cops trying to re rework it back to the good way. So I do see opposing forces. Same things when people talk about Space Brothers and evil little grays. All right, there's definitely more than one team going on here. It's almost like we have an entire league. All right, playing out in front of our eyes.
And who are you rooting for if you're going to play fantasy football aliens?
I'm rooting for the good time travelers. Is what I'm rooting for.
Bob, this has been an amazing presentation. Before we end today's show, where can people find you online to stay up to date with your latest research?
Well, I publish a lot in Outer Limits magazine and in the MUFON Journal. Outer Limits magazine is a British magazine. I post a lot of my articles there. I'm also MUFON's Director of International Investigations, and I always encourage people two things when I'm on a show, is that one, if you've seen something, if you've been abducted, if you're a pilot, military, I don't care if it happened in 1977, if you've had an experience of some sort, if you've seen something, if you have a photo or a video, we analyze it. Go to MUFON.com. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see report a UFO or report an experience or abduction. The other thing I tell people is that this is one of the most fascinating things I have ever done in my life. I have no regrets becoming a field investigator, and if you want to become a field investigator, I assure you, you will hear stories from people that will make your hair stand up on the back of your head. It's one of the most intriguing things I've ever done, and I encourage people, if you have any sort of interest in investigating UFOs, you really should do it.
And the links that he mentioned will be in the description box below. Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. It was a pleasure meeting you and talking with you.
If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe if you haven't already, as I do several shows right here every single week. And hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the videos that are posted right here. I do also write articles for all the shows. You can find them on my website at strangeparadigms.com. That link is in the description box below. That is it for today. I will see you next time. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.